Travel back with me, deep into the past, not just hundreds or thousands of years, but millions. We're heading to the Pliocene and Pleistocene epochs, a time when the world was a vastly different place, teeming with creatures that would seem like something out of a fantasy novel today. Our own ancestors, the early hominids like Australopithecus, were just starting their long journey, learning to walk upright and navigate a world full of giants. Imagine the African savanna, not just with lions and elephants as we know them, but with a whole host of megafauna, massive animals that have long since vanished. Among the rustling grasses and thorny acacia trees, our ancestors weren't just wary of the big-toothed cats or the charging rhinos. There was another, spikier threat lurking in the undergrowth, one that often gets overlooked in the grand story of prehistory. We're talking about the giant porcupine. Now, when you think of a porcupine, you probably picture a creature about the size of a small dog, maybe a little grumpy, but not exactly a top-tier predator. But the porcupines of 1,000,000 years ago were a different story entirely. These were the heavyweights of the rodent world. Species like Hystrix cristata, the African crested porcupine we see today, have relatives in the fossil record that were significantly larger. Imagine a porcupine the size of a sheep, armed with a formidable array of quills, some as long and thick as pencils. This wasn't just a defensive animal. It was a walking fortress, a force to be reckoned with. So, what happens when the path of a small, curious hominid crosses with one of these giant, spiky beasts? The evidence is fascinating and a little bit chilling. For years, paleontologists have been unearthing hominid fossils in places like the Swartkrans cave in South Africa. This cave is a treasure trove, a time capsule preserving the remains of both early hominids and the animals they lived alongside. And among these ancient bones, a peculiar pattern started to emerge. Researchers like Travis Pickering and Lucinda Backwell noticed something strange on some of the hominid fossils. Small, circular puncture marks. At first, they might have been mistaken for teeth marks from a leopard or some other predator. But under closer examination, the shape and size of these marks didn't quite match. They were too round, too uniform. The mystery deepened. What could have possibly made these wounds? The answer came not from a predator, but from the prey. The team started looking at the other animal remains in the cave, and their attention was drawn to the bones of the giant porcupines. They began to wonder if there was a connection. Could our ancestors have been hunting these spiky giants? It seemed like a risky proposition. A porcupine's defense is legendary. When threatened, they raise their quills, rattle them as a warning, and if the threat persists, they will charge backwards, driving those sharp spines deep into their attacker. A wound from a porcupine quill is not only painful, but can easily become infected and lead to a slow, agonizing death. Why would our ancestors take such a risk? The answer is simple. Food. In a world where every calorie counted, a giant porcupine represented a significant prize. They were relatively slow-moving and packed with protein and fat. If a group of hominids could figure out how to safely hunt one, the reward would be substantial. The Swartkrans cave provides clues to how they might have done it. Along with the fossils, archaeologists have found some of the earliest evidence of tool use, including simple bone tools and digging sticks. It's possible that our ancestors used these tools to their advantage. Perhaps they cornered the porcupine in its burrow, using digging sticks to get to it. Or maybe they used clubs to try and stun the animal from a distance, avoiding the deadly quills. It would have been a high-stakes hunt, requiring cooperation, intelligence, and a whole lot of courage. The puncture marks on the hominid bones might be the scars of these ancient battles, evidence of hunts that went wrong, where the porcupine got the last word. But there's another, even more intriguing possibility. What if the hominids weren't always the hunters? What if sometimes they were the hunters? While a porcupine isn't a predator in the traditional sense, they are fiercely territorial. An unsuspecting hominid, perhaps a young one, wandering too close to a porcupine's burrow or startling it in the dark, could have easily found themselves on the receiving end of a defensive charge. Picture a small Australopithecus foraging for roots and tubers, distracted by its task. It doesn't hear the warning rattle of quills from a nearby thicket. Before it can react, the giant porcupine charges, impaling the hominid's leg or arm. The hominid might have escaped, but the damage was done. The deep puncture wounds, perhaps breaking the bone, would have been a death sentence. Unable to walk, unable to forage, and with infection setting in, the injured hominid would have become easy prey for the true predators of the savannah, like saber-toothed cats. This scenario paints a vivid picture of the daily dangers our ancestors faced. It wasn't just about avoiding being eaten by a lion. It was about navigating a complex ecosystem where even the herbivores could be deadly. The fossil evidence from Swartkrans supports this dual narrative. The hominids were hunting porcupines, and the porcupines were, in turn, defending themselves, sometimes fatally. It was an arms race of survival. The hominids developed tools and strategies, while the porcupines perfected their bristling defense. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is a specific hominid vertebra found with a piece of porcupine quill still embedded in it. This is the smoking gun, the undeniable proof of a direct and likely fatal encounter. This single fossil tells a dramatic story of a confrontation that happened over 1 million years ago. It allows us to connect with our ancient relatives on a visceral level, to understand the raw, unfiltered reality of their existence. Studying these interactions gives us a profound appreciation for the ingenuity and resilience of early hominids. They weren't just passively surviving, they were actively learning, problem-solving, and taking calculated risks to feed themselves and their families. Every meal was a challenge, every day a test of their wits and courage. The decision to hunt a giant porcupine was a testament to their growing intelligence and their ability to weigh risk versus reward. This relationship also highlights how interconnected life was on the ancient savannah. It wasn't a simple food chain, but a complex web of interactions. Every creature, from the smallest rodent to the largest predator, played a role. The giant porcupine wasn't just a potential meal, it was a teacher. Encounters with these animals would have taught our ancestors valuable lessons about the natural world, about caution, about strategy, and about the consequences of a single mistake. As we continue to unearth fossils from caves like Swartkrans, we piece together more of this incredible story. We learn that our ancestors were not just ape men waiting for evolution to happen. They were dynamic, intelligent beings shaping their own destiny, one risky hunt at a time. The next time you see a porcupine, take a moment to consider its ancient, giant relative and the dramatic role it played in the story of human evolution. It's a reminder that the path to becoming human was paved with challenges, dangers, and the constant primal struggle for survival against even the spikiest of foes. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's truly amazing what the fossil record can teach us about our own origins. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into our planet's incredible past. Don't forget to ring the bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious.